Well, good evening, Facebook family, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk with YSS. We do these every Thursday night at 7:15 and or 7 o'clock. My apologies. And we cover a lot of different subjects, a lot of different fun things. We talk serious matters as well, being informative to the public and interacting with our teammates at YSS and with the public too. So I'd like to welcome all of you. Thank you for joining us. I think we have a couple of interesting things talking about tonight. We are going to be talking about connections, and we're also going to be talking about towards the end a silent auction that's been going on. So what I want to share first before we get too far into things is that there has been a silent auction going on that a group of not YSS students, a group of Iowa State students have put together a really fun thing that they have done. And they're going to be on a little bit later after Sarah and I are done talking and share about the results of their online auction. So this is the official last call for bids. So make sure if you are bidding on anything, you can find those items on Facebook too, on our YSS Facebook page, and be on there to look at what's available. So if you haven't already, make sure you get on there and make some bids. So now we will go ahead and move in. I want to introduce myself. I am Matthew Voorhees. I'm the residential program director for YSS. And I have with me Sarah Zoller, who is the YSS residential clinical coordinator. Both of us have worked in treatment for a couple decades. We've been involved with a few different treatment facilities. And this is something that's close to our heart, and that's about the power of connections. And when we talk about connections, you know, we're talking about relationships. And a fun thing, actually, we're also in the middle here at YSS of almost celebrating our 45th anniversary. We just celebrated our 40th anniversary for residential treatment, and we are going to be celebrating our 45th anniversary soon. And as we're celebrating that 45th anniversary and starting that, we do have a new initiative I know that we're going to be talking about and doing, and that is to make 1 million connections over the next 5 years. And our slogan that we're going to be using is making connections and building futures. Now, 1 million connections might seem like a lot, but YSS is a big organization. It's not just residential treatment here. We have outpatient treatment, we have outpatient therapy, we have kids club, we have AMP, we have rapid rehousing, we have transitional living, we have facilities, locations across the state of Iowa. So there's just a lot of people making a lot of different connections. And so that's a really fun initiative. And as we were talking about that initiative, as we were reaching out to staff about that and what connections mean to them, I have a few statements from staff that I just want to share on what connections mean to people. So I'm going to share a few of these. One of our staff said, connection is an invitation to a senior graduation reception for a youth adopted and supported by AMP. Or connection is a survivor of human trafficking calling and asking me to share their story because they heard me share someone else's story, and they too want to increase safety through prevention education. There was a quote that someone shared: few things in the world are more powerful than a positive push, a smile, a world of optimism and hope, a you can do it when things are tough. Another staff mentioned connection is a young adult asking you to go get a cupcake with them as you talk about life and updates on the drive to the shop. Another one, connection is an individual who calls back years later when they don't know where else to go and need some direction, but they call because they know their supports at YSS always met them where they were at and pushed them to strive to be the best version of themselves. So we have a lot of staff who shared about that. Connections is really important for all of our teams at YSS, and that's part of why we're sharing on the subject today. So what's made connections, though, difficult, especially lately, is COVID-19, which we are all very familiar with COVID-19. But that's had a pretty serious impact on our ability to make connections and our ability to have good relationships, good, healthy relationships in our lives. Psychology today mentioned that we are social animals, and that is very true. And staying at home with some advantages presents a strain, which may be more or less challenging depending on how we cope. On one hand, being at home more can be the stressor. Several studies have indicated a decrease in intimate relationships and the quality of those relationships because people are together more. So many of us, we work all day long, we're out and about all day long, but because of COVID, it brought us back together. And in our homes, maybe we haven't learned, how to relate all day together. And so we might get annoyed with each other more easily or get irritated by each other more easily. And so that's been a difficult adaptation. And on the other hand, being socially closed off due to like shelter in place orders have caused higher depression and greater loneliness. And that's been found too, that perceived relationship strength, but not social engagement, moderated this relationship. So this was talking specifically about older individuals. All of you are probably well aware, nursing homes being closed off, our older family members, not being able to connect personally or together physically as much. That has really been so hard on them.
Mm-hmm.
There was a strength, though, the perceived relationship strength. So if I felt like I was really close with someone, even though I didn't need them, that did help some, but it still was very, very difficult. So COVID-19 has definitely had an impact on our relationships, and it's caused us to rethink a lot of things. I know it's caused me to rethink a lot of things about relationships and what's important in my life. As we talk about connections, we're going to talk about connections in mental health, and we're going to talk about connections in substance use. So when we get into the area of mental health, the benefits of social connections and good mental health are very numerous. As we connect with people, as we have healthy relationships, studied and proven that there are lower rates of anxiety, stress, and depression. It contributes to higher self-esteem and greater empathy, and it contributes to more healthy recovery from health problems. So even just your relationships, people coming to visit you when you're sick, people coming to visit you when you're in a hospital. I know it's been hampered by COVID, but without COVID, people being able to come and do that has helped so much. It does help so much, just having someone around that cares. So there's a lot of very healthy things for relationships in regards to mental health. But on the opposite side, it's almost the same as the list above for positive, except directly opposite. It contributes to higher rates of anxiety, stress, and depression if you don't have those healthy relationships. And it contributes to higher rates of mortality. So people who don't have healthy relationships in their lives, they don't live as long. Their health problems can get the better of them, and they don't live as long. It also contributes to poor physical health outcomes, contributes to lower life satisfaction. You're not as happy with life. So you can see that, if you're not connected, if you're not together with people, it isolates you. It makes you not as happy about life. It'll start contributing into health problems. I mean, they have found even with relationships that health issues like blood pressure, heart conditions, things like that can be helped or hampered because of relationships. So, and we see that in our residential treatment all the time, the power of relationships when it comes to mental health. We serve boys and girls in our residential treatment ages 12 to 18. And we see individuals and families who have broken apart and don't communicate well. And that just tends to complicate their mental health issues. It complicates their substance use issues. So I don't know, Sarah, if there's anything you want to share about mental health in particular.
Absolutely. I mean, there's such a big impact when when you're alone and feeling isolated. When we're with other people and with people that we care about and people that care about us, that burden is shared. I mean, life is stressful in normal circumstances, and when a pandemic is happening and you don't know if it's safe to hug somebody or if it's safe to connect to somebody, that led to so much confusion. And then when that happens and you're feeling alone and don't have that somebody to share it with, that's why we're seeing such this in the spike with the mental health stuff as well as the substance use.
Yeah, and you're right, we are seeing that increase in mental health issues across the world. And there are studies being done, studies showing that already, that because of COVID, because of those lack of relationships, increased mental health issues. So not only mental health, but, like Sarah and I have mentioned, we do work with substance use too. And so substance use is also greatly affected. And I think both of these areas act the same. Mental health issues and substance use issues act the same. And we're going to explore that a little bit more here a little later. But as we get into substance use, youth in particular are directly impacted by the quality of their parental relationships. So if an individual, a youth, doesn't have good connections with their parents, doesn't have healthy relationships with their parents, they're much more likely to fall into substance use. And it contributes to earlier onset of substance use and a higher prevalence of substance use. So, it might seem surprising that we work with kids as young as 12 with substance use issues, but we both have come from other settings where we're working with individuals even younger than that for mental health struggles because of relationship. It's a broken down relationships in their families, or hurt relationships in their families. And substance use and mental health issues are kind of a vicious cycle that can happen if you don't address them and if you don't reach out and get the help. And so, as I'm struggling with substance use, if I'm struggling with alcohol and using to the point, where it's consuming my life, then I kind of step away from my life and I use more, and then I get depressed, I get anxious, and then I use more, and then I step away farther when the exact medicine that I need, the real medicine that I need, is to step out, is to reach out, is to find help. And that's such a difficult step for people to do when they're in struggling with mental health issues, when they're struggling with substance use. If your depression is getting the best of you, I used to really struggle with depression in my life. And I know I just wanted to stay put. I wanted to wrap up and not talk to anybody. I didn't want to leave the house. Just wanted to stay where I was. But I found as I worked through and became better at dealing with that, probably the easiest answer for me was just to get up, take a shower, and go outside. And then interact with someone, talk with someone. That was some of the best medicine that I could have ever do for myself. So we're going to move on here to our next slide. And this is something actually from what we teach. I'm a MANT instructor. MANT is a system of teaching that we do here at YSS, and a lot of other locations do too. But this kind of explores more of what I was just talking about. On the left-hand side, what you're looking at is kind of what stress, it's what depression, anxiety, things like that, and substance use can start to do to you. And it's going to be on the other right-hand side. On the right-hand side, it's talking more about how we can break that. So on the left-hand side, what we do initially is we start to internalize our emotions. And Sarah, you can chime in if you want to with any of this, but internalizing emotions, that's not a good thing for people, is it?
No, absolutely not. When you carry it inside, it just becomes a heavier and heavier weight. And so the more that you can connect and the more that you can share that, which is one of the things that we really push in our residential programs, but in all of our programs, about seeking those connections and sharing that, it really takes the burden part away.
Yeah. And we, we'll see that with our young men and women in our facilities, but this applies to everyone. It's not just someone in a facility. This is anyone out there working anywhere. This applies to all of us. But we do see it, more pronounced in our facilities at times. And so, if we have a young man or a young woman who wants to go sit in the corner and not associate with the group, we do push them. You need to be part of the group. You need to be moving and being active and interacting with others. But it's really scary, especially if you've been trapped in that for a while, because when you're internalizing those emotions, what happens is then your vision kind of starts boxing in. It gets smaller and smaller. And so at the same time, though, your problem gets bigger and bigger. So your vision, you can't see the things around you. When you look outside, you might not see the sun as being bright and shiny. You just see gray, in a manner of speaking. And that really starts to make you feel hopeless. And as you feel hopeless, it's that cycle. You start to disassociate more and you start distrusting people. And it just boxes you in and boxes you in and boxes you in. And so it can be really difficult to get out of that cycle. But if you go to the other side, the first step, and we talk about this with addiction all the time. We talk about this for adults and adolescents struggling with addiction. The biggest step, the hardest step, but in the first is to reach out to someone. And you definitely can reach out to YSS at any time if your loved one is struggling with, it doesn't have to be substance use, but if you're having a struggle in relationships, if you're having a struggle, mental health of any sort, we're definitely there to help you. And even if we're not in location, you can feel free to give us a call and reach out to us, because we will point you and help you find a place that's going to be able to serve you, because we want to be there for you for sure. But reaching out and finding that help, and maybe you don't need a therapist, maybe you don't need treatment. And so maybe the first thing you do is call your mom, call your dad, your brother, your sister, call that close friend of yours or that close mentor of yours, and just make that call. I remember times when I was stuck in my addiction, I just sitting there trembling, looking at the phone, knowing all I had to do was push this number. And I knew the person I was calling was going to be hard on me, but I also knew that they were going to tell me what I need to do and they were going to help me. But it was such a struggle. And so that first step, if you share with others, whatever's going on with you, share with others. And that's where that relationship comes really in handy. And as you share with others, your vision then starts to get widened. So you can see the sun a little bit better. You can start to see that maybe it is not so gloomy out there after all. And then suddenly you start to get hope, like, well, maybe today will be a good day. Maybe I could have a good day. And if you start feeling that, then you start to associate with someone. I know when I start to have a good day, I'm more apt to, as I'm walking down the street, say hi to the person walking past me,
Mm-hmm.
or be more cheerful with my coworkers, like Sarah. And then that starts to then be replaced. Instead of that lost trust, you start to trust people again. You start to be able to build relationships instead of losing relationships. So I know there's a couple old things that I always talk about when I talk about this in MANT, some kind of visuals and a good story. These are old things too. So it was an old movie with Robin Williams and I think Cuba Gooding Jr. called What Dreams May Come. And it's a very sad movie, but it does give a visual of how people can get lost in their depression. They can get lost away from their relationship, and they can get lost in some of that distrust. And it's really, really hard to break out. And I know in that movie, there was an attempt at a connection and it didn't work. But if you can keep that connection, even just one connection, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, it can really help break out even the darkest cycles that you may feel that you're in. It really can. And another good book that I would recommend too is an old book too called The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis, and it's so interesting. It's a bus trip from, you know, heaven to hell, or from hell to heaven, I mean. And you know, how people went up to heaven, and so many of them still chose to come back down to hell, and some of them stayed, but a lot of them chose to come back down to hell, because it's just what we were talking about with that narrowed vision versus wider vision. When you're in that so much, and you stay in that, and you stay isolated, it gets harder and harder to break away, and that depression has just consumed you. And so we're going to go to the next slide now, and I'm going to share just a little bit about this, but let Sarah talk more on this. Both of us are trauma-informed trainers, level 1, but she's like level 1 through ultimate level informed care trainer.
Yep.
And we do talk about connections and relationships in trauma-informed care, and those are really important. And a really interesting thing, this might be new to a lot of you, but there is a gentleman, he's still alive, Robin Dunbar, came up with something called Dunbar's number. And actually, it was back in the 90s. He was doing some work with some primates. And as he was finding some things with primates, he then went into studying human relationships too. And he found that generally speaking, humans each have 1 to 2 special friends. They'll have 5 intimate friends, 15 best friends, 50 good friends, 150 just friends, and like 500 acquaintances. So when Dunbar is talking about that, he presents it as layers, and we all have those layers in our lives. And so I don't know if I lost Sarah there or not.
Nope.
Oh, she's still okay. There
I'm
she
still
is.
here. Yep.
I'm going to turn it over to you a little bit to talk about that Dunbar number and what that means for us, what intimate connections mean for us.
Absolutely. So that idea of there's kind of 150 people that we can hold in our brain, that we can be in relation with. Some obviously more than others. Some that we're going to stare at the phone and go, "Ooh, is that the?" I'm going to call and they're going to give me a hard time, but we know that they're going to respond. Having those people that we have our bigger number of 150, but those small, close, personal, intimate relationships are so important. Sometimes with social media and things like that, we get so hung up on how many followers or how many numbers or how many, and perceiving that to be some type of real, genuine connection. And so, in a way, we feel more connected to the world, but then we feel less connection in our hearts. And when we don't have that connection in our hearts, kind of going back to what you were talking about earlier, then we miss that shared experience. We miss that shared caring for each other. Um, and so that's one of the dangers kind of when it comes to that 150, a lot of times we can kind of get the idea of it's us versus them. And so these 150 that are my friends or kind of in my group, I can understand and I can relate to and identify with. And then on social media, it can get really easy to start talking about, oh, them and how they do things and that kind of thing. And then we start feeling, maybe some self-righteousness or things like that. And then we get hung up in that instead of really helping out our neighbor, really connecting to the people that we love, and then getting our connection in healthy ways. And so one of the things, part of the reason that we're doing our million in the next 5 years is helping rebuild those connections, rebuild that ability to look somebody in the eye, giving somebody a hug if they need a hug, just that one positive, healthy relationship. For some of the kids and folks that we work with, they've missed that, or they had it in the past and they've done a whole lot of things to burn a lot of bridges. And we try and help, especially in our residential setting, we try and help the kids that we're working with reconnect to their parents, and build a different relationship, a healthier relationship to where they can be that support, where they can reach out to each other in a way that's truly healthy, truly supportive.
Yeah, and I like what you mentioned there about social media, because it has become kind of our new relationship, become our new way that we relate. In fact, there was I was talking to one of our therapists there at residential, and he had mentioned talking to someone that he had worked with at another facility, and this individual had mentioned that the only way he communicates is through texting or through social media because he's too scared to actually talk to someone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a younger individual who has really grown up in the social media age. And so he's too frightened, and he gets massive amounts of anxiety to even think about actually talking to someone. And he thinks that as he's starting to apply for jobs or apply for schools, that he can do it all over text because that's what we're going to be like in 10 years.
Mm.
So so it changes our brain and how we function. And you're right, it does. It's so easy to get on social media or any social media and get into that us versus them mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be so healthy for all of us just to put down that stinking phone and
Absolutely.
and go out with your kids or go out, with a friend. And, I'm glad that things are starting to open up a little bit more from COVID and give us some opportunities to do that because that's so, so important. And so,
Absolutely. Well, and even just going for a walk and coming across somebody and smiling at somebody and having
yeah,
them smile back at you. There's a lot of power in that.
yeah, very much so. And so, as we're thinking about especially nurturing those intimate relationships, those close relationships, think about things that you can be doing. I know I try to follow a couple practices in my own life, and one is if there's someone that I haven't thought about in a while, then suddenly they come into my mind, a person that's been close to me in the past. I try to commit to myself. I'm going to call that person and reach out to them, hopefully that day, and just say, "Hey, how you doing?" and try to connect. And usually, when I do that, it turns into a nice long conversation, a quality conversation, where I can just kind of nurture that relationship, and it helps me feel better, and I know it helps the other person feel better too. Um, and so that's one way. And then, sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a minute. But yeah, your family members, again, what we just mentioned, putting down your phones, putting down your media devices. I know we probably a lot of homes out there, just you come home and you're right on your phone, you're on your email, you're on your computer, you're doing something like that. You just need to put that stuff down and go on a bike ride,
Mm-hmm.
walk, go out and grill something,
Mm-hmm.
you know, go out and anything.
Toss a ball around. I mean,
Yep. Do it together.
mhm.
And I know, and all of you know too, who are listening, that taking a little bit of time to do that just does refresh you so, so much. It just helps renew your life, it fills your bucket up, and makes that important, and makes things a lot better. So again, reaching out to those loved ones in your life, reaching out to those family members. If you haven't connected with them, I'd encourage you to do that. Give them a call. Time goes by so fast.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I was sharing, actually, my father and I were talking last week, and he's 67, and he made this statement. And I was like, oh, he's like, well, I only got like 20 good years left. And I'm like, son of a gun. He's right.
Mm,
And that seems like a lot of time, but it's not, you know.
mm,
And he mentioned too that, it was one commitment of his as his dad got older to try to spend more time with his mom and his dad. And I know I want to be doing that too, and with your children as well. So I know that's really important to both myself and to Sarah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So reach out, make those connections with folks, and I want to touch on one more thing too. Point number 3 there talks about the power of even one positive, healthy relationship, and this is something too that is proven in some studies as well. That you'll hear a lot of times of people who have come out of really difficult situations or have gone through really difficult things. You'll hear these great stories. Someone who's persevered and now has graduated college like magna cum laude, or has really excelled in their work. And so many people will talk about, well, there's this one family member, there's my grandma or my dad or a mentor, someone close to me who, no matter what, was always there, and I could always talk to them. And it was so vital and it was life changing for them. They didn't have anything else going on in their life that was positive, but they had that one positive, healthy relationship. And so even if you just got one, hang on to that, reach out to that. And if you too are someone who does have a lot of, abundant life and a lot of good things going on in yourself, and you just feel you have that energy and that ability to connect with more people, think about becoming a mentor yourself, thinking about becoming a volunteer, not just at YSS, but wherever you are, going out and interacting and serving the community, and finding people that might need that quite a bit. So I would encourage you to try to do that as well and make connections that way, because those also are extremely rewarding. Like I read from our staff earlier, I know we're all in this job. Sarah's in this job. I'm in this job. Everyone else at YSS, because we love people, and we want to be together with people, and we want to help. So, Sarah, do you have any more thoughts on that topic?
I really appreciate the idea of mentoring and helping and reaching out to other people. I mean, especially for people that have grown up in situations and can really be a light to somebody else. That's how we continue to grow, and that's how we continue to evolve, is when we're able to pass over what we know, pass on what we know.
Yeah. And yeah, mentoring. And then there's, like I said, all kinds of volunteer opportunities. If you want to volunteer with YSS, give us a call. We have, and I was just talking with our marketing engagement teams today about all kinds of volunteer opportunities just for residential. And I know they're going around and talking to all of our departments. So if you have something that you like to do that you want to share with someone, whether it's sewing, whether it's changing tires or changing oil, or whether it's a yoga class, or whatever it might be, and you want to volunteer some time to come, and you can do it with residential treatment, you can do it with AMP, you can do it with there's all kinds of ways that you can interact with YSS. But if you have something like that and you want to be involved in like in that way, please reach out to us, give us a call, go to our website, and reach out to us. So yeah, and just to close one more time, again, our focus, hopefully starting this summer for celebrating our 45th anniversary, our goal is to make 1 million connections here at YSS. And I think we're going to squash that goal.
I think so too.
So we are going to now, we're done talking about connections for right now, but there is a different kind of connection that's coming up next, and that's the ISU students. They're going to be coming on screen here, and they're going to be talking about what they were doing with their silent auction, and they're going to be sharing about the winners. So, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, you're good. Yep.
All right, you guys want to go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay, so first, I just want to thank everybody and all the companies that participated in our silent auction. It really means a lot to us. I know Nala is on the board, and that was a really big connection for us with YSS. And personally, I had one of my good childhood friends that passed away from a unintentional overdose a few years ago. And I think that YSS would have been an excellent resource for him. I know how cliche it is that the first step in solving a problem is realizing you have a problem. But after that, there's a question of what do you do? And I think YSS is an excellent answer to that. I think it's really awesome what they're doing with the youth and helping people that are struggling with substance abuse, because it is an ongoing problem. And I don't think that problem's going away anytime soon. So I think it's really important to have, organizations like this that will help the youth. So now we are going to thank the winners of the silent auction, and we will start down here with Peyton.
So our first winner for the We the Dreamers in Oak Lane Candle Company gift basket goes to Kim Houston.
And then next, for the Copper Creek Golf Bundle is Ian Corwin. Then from from Wheatsfield, the local and organic basket goes to Susan Tucker.
The Toad Valley Golf Bundle goes to Ian Corwin again.
I see that name quite a bit, actually.
Here it comes.
The second Toad Valley Golf Bundle also goes to Ian Corwin.
Vancouver Memorial Golf Course Bundle goes to Vincent Holmes.
Next, we have a $50 gift card from Herbert's Flower Home, and that goes to Jerry Basinger.
Then we have a craft kit from the Pumpkin Patch, and that goes to Patrick Kramer. Then there's a bundle from Woodland Hills Golf, and it goes to my sister, Azaz Atrud.
And the next Woodland Hills Golf Bundle goes to Andrea Dickerson.
Gift card to Wagner Golf goes to Jake Blotcher.
And two $20 Morning Bell Coffee gift cards goes to Andrea Dickerson.
Next, we have a little mug from Hy-Vee that also goes to Patrick Kramer.
We have two $18 Varsity Car Wash gift cards, and that goes to Bobby Dennis. Then our next item is one 3-month single gym membership to Ames Rackham Fitness, and that goes to Jen Hibben.
And we have a Texas Roadhouse gift basket that goes to the one and only Stacy Ty Williams.
She's our professor.
Yeah. And the second Texas Roadhouse gift basket goes to Samantha Fox.
And
Okay.
yeah, thank you
That's
to
all.
all the businesses that donated.
Yeah, so in the next, like this weekend or so, one of us will reach out to these winners and just go over details of payment and drop off or pick up for each of the items. Again, we just want to give a special thank you to all the businesses who donated. They're all Iowa and Ames-based businesses. We just wanted to give towards YSS for this exact fundraiser, just to support their their residential treatment program. And just to say again, all the funds from our fundraiser is going to a scholarship towards the alumni of the residential treatment program. And our total for our fundraiser is $1,115. So again, thank you to everyone who donated and all the businesses who donated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you guys. The energy in the room is amazing. Really, really appreciate it. And speaking of ISU, that leads into our next week's Let's Talk. Next week at 7 on Thursday, we are going to have Lindsay Long, who's with Iowa State Athletics, and we're also going to have Serena Flathers with YSS, who's with us. She's a community engagement coordinator. Lindsay is also a board member here at YSS. So, and fun fact, Lindsay has been bringing some athletes and been engaging with athletes in our residential facilities. That includes our substance use facilities and our shelters. In fact, they just here in central Iowa brought some athletes over to visit with all the kids and brought pizza and just had a really amazing time. So we really value this partnership, and they're going to share a lot about what they're doing and the connections that means. And so really excited for that. So please tune in. Thank you for tuning in this evening, and I hope you have a great rest of your night.